Juhu. He loved to walk on that beach. So his morning walks. And one day there was a man walking with a small dog, a very small dog. And there was a stray dog, another dog, which had no master there. And the stray dog was very big in comparison to the other dog was very small. So the big dog gave a big bark, woof. And the little dog had no fear whatsoever. Why? You know, and then Prabhupada asked that question. Why is it that the little dog has no fear? And the reason was, of course, because even though the dog by itself is very small and weak compared to the stray dog, but because it had a very powerful master standing next to it, then it felt no fear. Of course, if that little dog had been by itself, it probably would have been very terrifying. But because it was standing under the shelter of his master, then it wasn't afraid at all. And in fact, what happened next was the small dog gave a little bark, woof, and the big dog ran away. The big dog was afraid of the little dog because, you know, the small dog was so courageous and fearless, and that knowing that it had the shelter of its master, that the quality of that bark from the small dog scared away. And Prabhupada pointed out that we are like that little dog. Although we're very, you know, small and helpless and everything, but because we have taken of Krishna, then we are fearless. We have no fear.
Prabhuji,
So,
you are a very important point you're making, but you're cutting again, Prabhuji. It goes off sometimes and comes back. You know, every few seconds it goes away and comes back.
Oh, really? Okay. I'll move downstairs closer to the modem.
Yeah, even now, see, you're breaking right now.
Okay. I'll just go downstairs closer to the modem. Okay. Bear with me.
Prabhuji.
Yeah. Can you bring the leads? Yes. Okay. Sorry about that. Some technical difficulty. So did you understand the basic purport of what I was saying? You didn't miss out too much. I don't have to repeat it, or I need to repeat something. It's okay. Yeah. So that for me, when I heard that story, tells me what the secret is of becoming fearless. We can't become fearless separately from God. We need to come closer to God. And in that scenario, then automatically we become fearless. So it's like Prabhupada also talked about how a devotee attains all the good qualities of the demigods. So, and he would mention, like, you just have to try to become a devotee, and then automatically the good qualities will come. So it's, of course, he also said, you know, it's helpful to know what the good qualities are, and definitely we should try to cultivate them, knowing about them. However, probably the main thing is, even more important than trying to cultivate some good qualities, is just to try to become a sincere and serious devotee. And of course, that we can do by trying to strictly follow the orders of the spiritual master. And, you know, by pleasing the spiritual master, Krishna will become pleased, right? We say that, yasya prasada, prasada nagati gutopi, in the Mangalarati prayers, that by pleasing the spiritual master, then Krishna becomes pleased. And if he's not pleased, then we can't make any advancement. So definitely, you know, we can make advancement in Krishna consciousness by following Krishna's instructions as representative of the spiritual master. And by following the instructions, they become pleased. And Prabhupada points out in the Bhagavad Gita, in the purport to the famous verse 434, Tadvadi Pranipatena, the importance of surrendering to the Guru, taking shelter of the Guru, that the secret of success in spiritual life is to please the spiritual master. That's the secret of success in spiritual life, to please the spiritual master. And one advances in spiritual life. That's the secret of success. And then, so by advancing Krishna consciousness, and automatically we should see that slowly the fear goes down and we become fearless more and more. And then we become more humble more and more tolerant, more compassionate, more patient. So these good qualities, we should see that develop in the devotee as they become more Krishna conscious. However, we can see scriptures, you can look at it from different angles. So now I'm going to look at it from a different angle. So one time a disciple of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati asked the question, the Gaudiya Math time, Guru Maharaj, we see that many devotees have been practicing Krishna consciousness for a long time. They've chanted so many rounds, they've attended so many classes, so many Mangalaris, so much preaching. And yet we can see behavior that they don't seem to be very advanced. They don't seem to have advanced very much in Krishna consciousness. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's answer is quite esoteric, but we can discuss that. He said they have intestinal worms. Did you get that? They have intestinal worms. So let's discuss that. What happens if you eat very good food cooked in ghee, your samosas and gulab jamuns and puris and nice fried paneer sabji and everything like that, very delicious and fattening and juicy and everything like that, mode of goodness food. But if you've got parasites in your stomach, will you get the benefit of that food? Will the body get nourished by eating that food? No, because the parasite's eating it all. So what is he indicating? That if we have the parasites of material desires in our heart, these are like parasites or worms, they devour the benefits and credit in that we get by doing devotional service. So we have to try to do something to keep our devotional service as pure as possible. And that's why it's mentioned so many places in the Bhagavad Gita, that pure devotional service is without material desires and free from mental speculation. Like there's one, I just verse in the end of the I think the end of the 11th chapter, text 55, I think it is. Let's have a quick look there. 11th chapter. Yeah. 11:55. My dear Arjuna, he who engages in my pure devotional service, free from the contaminations of fruitive activities, which is fruit activities like material desire, and mental speculation. He who works for me and makes me the supreme goal of his life and is friendly to every living being, he certainly comes to me. So that is very important, and Prabhupada says, first sentence of the purport, listen to this: anyone who wants to approach the supreme of all the personalities of Godhead on the Krishna Loka planet in the spiritual sky and be intimately connected with the supreme personality Krishna must take this formula as stated by the Supreme himself. Therefore, this verse is considered to be the essence of the Bhagavad Gita. This verse is the essence of the Bhagavad Gita. So it's very important that we should we should aspire for pure devotional service, and the criteria for that is free from this, for desire for fruit activities, which is material desires like that, and mental speculation. Like that's very important. Of course, Rupa Goswami says in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the essence of the Bhakti Rasamrita is Anyabhilasida shunyam jnana kama navatam anukulyena krishnanu shilanam bhakti utama. That we should, it's a definition of pure devotional service, and that pure devotional service is saying we should cultivate desires to serve Krishna favorably, anukulya and shilanam. So cultivating the shilanam and anukulya, which is favorable, cultivate activities which are favorable to Krishna. And those activities which are favorable to Krishna, they should be without other desires. Anyabhilasita. Abhilas means desires, and anya means other, and shunyam is zero. So other desires, we should make them zero, shunyam. And then what is it? Jnana, karma, and navratam. So like mental speculation, jnana, and karma, fruit of activities, those ones we should make zero, desire for mystic powers like that. So that is something that we really all need to work on. We've come to Krishna, but we should to make our goal pure devotional service, not just mixed devotional service and continuing on with material desires and speculation, but we should try to purify the service we're doing. Of course, you can do service in the mode of ignorance. You can do devotional service in the mode of passion. You can do devotional service in the mode of goodness, and you can do devotional service in Shuddha Sattva and pure goodness. So, I mean, we should aspire for that Shuddha Sattva, trying to. Of course, it's said in the Bhagavatam, right, in the second canto, akama, moksakama, what is it? Akama, Savakama va moksakama udaradahi Terena bhakti yogena yujeta purusapram. Whether you are akama, means have no material desires, or savakama, all material desires, like many of us come to the movement, we got full of material desires. Mokshakama, whether you're desiring liberation, but everyone is recommended, all of those three categories are recommended to do bhakti yoga, tivrena, with full force, full enthusiasm. And of course, Rupa Goswami says that, right, in the Nectar of Instruction, 6 things favorable to bhakti is utsahan nistrayakdaya. So utsaha, should be enthusiastic. So tivrena is like that, enthusiasm. Be very enthusiastic about all of our service to our spiritual master and to the Lord, and like that will help us to come us up to that platform. So even if we are carrying in our hearts a lot of parasites, which we are, a lot of worms are there, but just by force, practice our devotional service, follow the instructions of the spiritual master, that will purify me. I know one time a disciple came to Prabhupada saying, "Oh, Prabhupada, there's so many obstacles in my devotional life, so many obstacles." And he was like lamenting that he couldn't seem to be getting anywhere. There's so many due to these obstacles in his Krishna consciousness. From, karma and past association and our crazy mind and like that, where there's so many obstacles. And demons, influencing, and so many things in Kali Yuga, of course. And Prabhupada said, with one kick of my foot, getting back to the Charan, right? This is getting back to the Charan. So with one kick of my foot, I can kick away millions of obstacles, unlimited obstacles. I can kick, just stay with me, and I can kick away so many obstacles. So this is our hope, not only that, in our own personal endeavors, of course, are very insignificant, minute, and Maya is so powerful, but in the mercy and compassion of the spiritual master and the devotees and Krishna, and Krishna, especially in Kaitaia, Namo Mahavaranyaya Krishna Prem Parayate. He's freely giving Krishna praying. So we should take shelter of Lord Chaitanya, especially in this Kali Yuga. Prabhupada mentions you have to take shelter of Lord Chaitanya. If you don't take shelter of Lord Chaitanya, if you don't know Lord Chaitanya and you don't take shelter of Lord Chaitanya in Kali Yuga, you will not be successful. You'll not be successful. Lord Chaitanya is the Yuga avatar, and he is propagating the Yuga Dharma. You have to know Lord Chaitanya, and you have to take shelter of Lord Chaitanya if you want to be successful in Kali Yuga. So that's very important. We need to, come under the shelter of the spiritual master and Lord Chaitanya, come under their Charan, and that will protect us from Maya, from this influence, so much big influence of Maya, so many obstacles there, and that will help us, that will protect us. And so let's look at it from another angle. We generally look at fear as a negative thing, right? Lust is negative, we normally think, right? Lust is negative, greed is negative, pride is negative, fear is negative. But is it always? Think about it. Is it always? Is it always negative? Is it possible that sometimes fear is a good thing, to have some fear? What is, what's that verse? Second chapter, text 41, I think it is. Or 40, is it 40? Yeah, I think 40. Nihabi kraman ashosti pratyavayo navijate swalpamapyasya dhamasya trayate mahato bayat. That on this path, there's no loss, no diminution, a little advancement protects one from the greatest type of fear. What is the greatest kind of fear? Bayat. What is the greatest? Mahato, the greatest fear. Bayat, the greatest. Explains that the greatest fear is that having this human form of life, when you die, you go down into the lower species of life. Animal species, plant, bird, fish, cockroach, whatever. Nil, 0% opportunity to continue practicing Krishna consciousness. Of course, there are some rare examples that, Bharat was Krishna conscious, like that. So there are some rare examples that in a non-human form, you can become Krishna conscious. And Gajendra the elephant, he remembered his past life. But that's an exception to the rule. Generally, the rule is you're not about conscious unless you've got a human body. So that's like a fearful situation for a devotee, that after we die, what if one option is you go back to Godhead. Another option is you get another human form and you continue Krishna consciousness, right? Like the end of the 6th chapter talks about that, right? That what if, I don't succeed at spiritual life? Will I become like a riven cloud and then you're all scattered? I gave up my material duties to take to Krishna consciousness. I gave up all my material duties. And then I wasn't successful at Krishna consciousness either. So I'm in no man's land. And Krishna says, no, you don't have to worry about that. If you've done a short bit of practice, then you take birth in a rich family or a family of Brahmins. And if you've done a long practice of yoga, then you take birth in a family of transcendentalists. And Prabhupada points out that's the best people in a family of transcendentalists. And he said, I had that good fortune. And he said, my guru had that good fortune. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was born in the family of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Prabhupada was born, the Gaura Mahandeya is also a Vaishnava, Gaudiya Vaishnava, like that. So it's the best birth. So generally that's there. So that's one. But what happens if something else happens, something goes wrong and you don't get a human life in the next life? Like Bharat. Bharat was, you can't say he wasn't a devotee. He was a great devotee, but he fell down into a lower species. So in that verse is talking about that is the greatest fear. Prabhupada mentions that kind of fear, to be afraid of losing your human form, is healthy. You get that? That's healthy, because what does that do? That fear makes us, well, I better chant better rounds, I better read more Bhagavad Gita, I better get into the philosophy, I better, serve my spiritual master instructions better, because I don't want to slip off the edge. Like, what did Prabhupada say? And it's a quote from the, from the scriptures, that human life is like a razor's edge. A razor's edge. What happens when you're shaving with a razor? If you're not careful, you cut yourself. So we have to be careful. And interesting, that word comes up in the Guru Vandana prayers, right? Bando moi savadhana savadhana means careful. Like, they had that, some road signs in India, they have the word savadhana there on the road, right? Because at a place you got to be careful that there's some big pothole or something. They put the sign savadhana there. So you have to bow down to the spiritual master with great care and attention, and very carefully, because if you don't, you might lose the mercy and you slip off, and lose your opportunity to be Krishna conscious. Like one time Prabhupada was leaving a temple going to the car, and all the devotees were lined up on both sides of the footpath. One fully bowed down with their head on the ground, except for one brahmachari. He remained standing, and he did this, which is like, by the way, third class way to offer respect. That's third class. Second class is put your head on the ground. First class is lie flat on the ground. So dandavat. So Prabhupada saw what happened out of the corner. The corner's eye saw that brahmachari just did this. And Prabhupada said very softly, only his personal servant and secretary around him heard what he said. But it's very important what he said. Prabhupada said very softly, that is the beginning of his fall down. That is of his fall down. That's all he said. And he kept walking, went into the car and drove off. But that's so important. You have to be careful. Well, part of that being careful is you have to have respect for the devotees. You have to have respect for the spiritual master. You have to have respect for the Supreme. You have to follow the instructions, of the spiritual master. Like, there's all these things we have to be careful. Have to be very careful. One criticism Prabhupada had of especially the Western disciples he mentioned, he said, the criticism I have of my Western disciples, they're not afraid of Maya enough. You think, I'm a devotee. I'm under Krishna's shelter. I'm protected by Krishna. I can do any damn thing. No, mate. No, sorry. It doesn't work like that. Don't become that kind of fearless. It's not the kind of fearlessness we want. That you're not afraid of Maya. Prabhupada explained that's important. You should be afraid of Maya. See, people like from Indian background tend to be more respectful of the material energy, Maya, whereas Westerners, we don't know how powerful Maya is. We haven't been maybe brought up with all these, understandings fully, and not really appreciating how powerful Maya is. Like Prabhupada would say many times that if Maya just glances at someone, just sidelong glance, then the person will immediately fall down, and Maya's, compared to us, Maya is so powerful. And of course, we know the only way to get free from Maya is by surrendering Krishna, right? Because who's the only person that's more powerful than Maya? That's only God. Everyone else is less powerful than Maya, and that's that very important verse, right? 7:14. Daiviyesha gunamaya mama maya duracha. Duracha is a very heavy word, It's like almost Durati is it's like a fortress, very impossible to get out of it, and then mamava prapadyante, you have to surrender, maya may come tarantate, and then you can tarantate, cross over the Maya. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. You know, so that's very important to realize, so strong. And the only way to get out of that is we have to very carefully, you know, we surrender, of course, but then carefully try to maintain that, because it's easy. Also, you can, I surrender, but then you become slack after that, you know, so that's not going to help. You know, you have to carefully maintain your surrender. The first day, you know, when we get initiated, we might be, you know, very fired up and everything, but how to maintain that degree of surrender, that's also, you know, so many people have surrendered, but do we stay surrendered? You know, because as soon as you walk out of that shelter, the Charan, as soon as you walk away from the Charan of the instructions of the Lord and his devotees and like that, away from the shelter, then you're on your own, mate. You know, then you're on your own again, you know, and then Maya is going to fire you down. And like there's many cases of like even persons that took shelter of Prabhupada by getting initiated from him, and they got their spiritual name and everything, and you know, and they made their vows, and then the next day, from the next day onwards, they were never seen again. You know, so you can surrender, okay, very good, but are you going to maintain it? Because, you know, maybe they had material desires that, well, I just want to get a name. You know, I can tell all my friends that Prabhupada's my guru, but you don't do anything. You don't do anything, you know, and you're not really qualified, you know, and you don't continue following those instructions. So it's very important, you know. So I just want to point out that sometimes fear is very healthy. To have a fear of Maya, a fear of forgetting Krishna at the time of death, you know, like that, a fear of losing a human form of life after you die, like that, the body dies, like that. Of course, we don't want to always be fearful and anxiety of silly things, like afraid of dying, you know, because what can you do about it? There's no point being afraid of something you can't stop. Oh, I don't want to die, I don't want to die, you know, like that. You know, like Hiranyakashipu, right? He didn't want to die. He's afraid of death, you know, he tries to make himself immortal. So that's hopeless, you know. Why be afraid of something you can't do anything about it, right? We should be afraid of something that you can do something about it, and then change it. You know what I'm saying? Like you can, okay, I'm afraid of dying, I'm going to die, okay, but I can become Krishna conscious, and then this is my last death, and then I'm going to go back to Godhead, you know, and then I won't have to go through the cycle of Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadi again. You know, I'll be out of that cycle, you know, samsara dava nalini loka. We can get out of that, you know. So be afraid of death and do something about it by taking shelter of Krishna. Well, there's a beautiful verse. I actually found out about this verse in, I think it's 4th canto Bhagavatam, from Mahavishnu Maharaj in that book, Bhagavatam in Practice, Srimad Bhagavatam Practice. One verse that he really liked, and in that verse is saying that Yakash Prachanda Vegada Vidavado Bisham Bitam Prapanam Paripati Advayam Mrityu Pradavantyaranam Tamimahi. And what that is saying, that the Supreme Lord is very powerful. Like I said, you know, the little dog with a very powerful master, you know, so he's very powerful. So that's what we want to do, come under the very powerful master. But it's saying there, hardly anyone knows him. He's Balino, he's powerful, but Yakashjanesho, hardly anyone, you know, like it says, right? Manushanam Sahasresu Kaschid Yatati Siddhye, you know, thousands of persons, hardly anyone, out of those, hardly one, you know, knows anything about Krishna, you know. So hardly anyone knows him. He's such a powerful master, you know. Krishna is so powerful. See, even fear personified is afraid of Krishna, and that's what this verse is saying. That even Krishna himself is doing his duty out of fear of Krishna, and he runs away. It's saying that everyone runs away from death. Everyone tries to run away from death, you know, but even death runs away from Krishna. So that's the idea, you know. If you want to get free from the fear of death, then come to Krishna, because even death itself is afraid and running away from Krishna. But what that verse is saying in the third line is betam. The betam means fear. So in the beginning, there's fear. Betam. Why are we Krishna conscious? Where did Krishna consciousness begin from? Began from fear. Well, why did we take shelter of Krishna? Why did we come to Krishna consciousness? There's fear there. Because we don't want to die. We don't want to suffer. We want to be happy. We don't want to suffer in the material world. We want to get free from suffering. So in the beginning, there's fear. But that fear is a good fear, because from that betam, then the next thing that happens is prapanam. I'm afraid of Maya, and due to that fear, I surrender to Krishna. And then paripati, then he frees us from that fear. He delivers us. So in the beginning, you're afraid, and because of that fear, that leads you to surrender to God. And then when you surrender to God, then he delivers us. Isn't it like Gajendra was afraid, right? Gajendra was very afraid. And in that fear, he surrendered, and held up that lotus and offered prayers to Krishna, to Narayan. And then Narayan came and delivered him, right? Then Narayan delivered him. He cut off the head of the crocodile, liberated the crocodile, liberated him, so everyone gets benefited. So that's the course of events. First of all, there's fear in our life. Then due to that, we surrender. And then due to that surrender, the Lord comes and sets us free and delivers us. And so that verse is saying that, so everyone should take shelter of the Lord. Everyone should take shelter of the Lord. Even fear itself runs away from Krishna like that. So those are just some general things, so we want to be fearless, but also just be aware there is some healthy kind of fear as well. Sometimes we do want to become fearless of, but sometimes some things we should be afraid of, like that just my mind. And I think it's the 5th canto, right? Rahugana, the pastime of King Rahugana and Jada Bharat. King Rahugana, he's like super puffed up, right? And the beginning like that, and he's very disrespectful to Jada Bharat and insults him in so many ways, because Jada Bharat's like holding the palanquin, but he's giving a bit of a rough ride to the king because he's dodging the ants, because he's a pure devotee, he doesn't want to hurt the ants. So in doing that, he's giving the king a rough ride, and so the king insults him and everything. And then for the first time, preaches the absolute truth, because he's been acting as Jada, right? A real fool. So, but now he's saying this is a worthwhile time for me to actually open my mouth and tell him the truth, and so he preaches the real Krishna, pure Krishna Katha. And the guy becomes completely transformed, completely purified by that Krishna Katha. And he gets off the palanquin and he falls down the ground. And then one of his verses, he says, so I don't know, remember, but he says, I'm not afraid of the thunderbolt of Indra. I'm not afraid of death and all this kind of stuff. I'm not afraid of this. I'm not afraid of that. I'm not afraid of this. But one thing I am afraid of, I'm afraid of offending a pure devotee of the Lord. You get that? So like that is a good fear. That's not bad. We should be afraid of offending a devotee. What's the first offense? 10 offenses of the holy name, right? What's the first one? To blaspheme the devotees who dedicate their lives to propagating the holy name of the Lord. So we should be afraid of doing that. That kind of fear, keep that one. Keep that one. And like that, Rahugana says that. I'm not afraid of the thunderbolt of Indra. Wow, he's really fearless. But he's afraid of offending a pure devotee. So it's interesting. So yeah, it's always good to see from angles like that. And lust, is it good or bad? Who are the topmost devotees of the Lord? The gopis of Vrindavan. How did they come to Krishna consciousness? Through lust. They became attracted to Krishna's beautiful Krishna. Shyam Sundar. He's so beautiful, like a rain cloud. He's so beautiful. They became attracted. Like Kubja is another example, right? Kubja, She's like a prostitute. She offered her body to Krishna, like they wanted to enjoy with him. But of course, when Krishna came to her, yeah, she asked him, because she massaged his body with the sandalwood pulp. And he said, I'm busy now, I have to kill Kamsa, but I'll come back. Because she asked him, please, I want to, satisfy you and everything like that, and enjoy with you. He said, yeah, I'll come back later. And he actually did. He wasn't just playing with her. He actually did come back. When she was full of lusty desires for enjoying with Krishna. And then enjoying herself, not her own senses, not just pleasing Krishna's senses, but she wanted to enjoy her own senses. So it was lust. But it said that, Krishna, of course, put his feet, his Charan Aravinda, put his lotus feet on her feet, and then I think grabbed her by her cheeks because she was a hunchback. So straightened her out, made her into a beautiful goddess, transformed her from a hunchback into a beautiful goddess. And also, not only that, but took away all the lust and turned it into pure love. So it's like that. If you come to Krishna with lust, then pure love. That lust was actually a blessing, because if they didn't have that lust, they wouldn't have come to Krishna. You know what I'm saying? So there's a verse by, I think, Rupa Goswami or Sanatan saying, that by lust the gopis came to, pure devotees like that. He gives different examples of different devotees, how they come to Krishna consciousness. And another thing, like greed, is it good or bad? Time is the only price to pay to get absorption in Krishna consciousness. Krishna bhakti rasa bhavitamati kriyatad yadi katopilabhite tatralolyam ekam, what is it? Mulyam ekalam, like that. Janmakoti sukrita nalabhite, something like that. Is saying that the only price to pay to get absorption in Krishna consciousness is lawless. Verse is saying, if you're not greedy, forget about it. You're not going to become a pure devotee. You're not going to become a pure devotee unless you're greedy. But of course, if you're greedy for money and women, money in the opposite sex, that's going to destroy your Krishna consciousness. But if you're greedy for, I have to become a pure devotee, I must somehow or other, it doesn't matter what it takes, like Rukmini, right? Rukmini had that kind of greed. I don't care how many lifetimes of pious activities I have to do to get Krishna as my husband, but I have to get Krishna as my husband somehow or other, however many lifetimes. So that kind of greed, intense desire, longing that I must achieve Krishna consciousness at any cost, whatever it takes. If I have to 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, whatever, for many lifetimes, whatever. So that intense, I have to become a millionaire. I do whatever it takes to become a millionaire. But the same greed, it's really bad, right? Maybe. But what about Hanuman? It said Hanuman became perfect by being angry against Ravana and Lanka. And when they lit his tail on fire, right, he jumped purposefully from housetop to housetop. He was so angry. He just wanted to burn the whole blimmin' place. But he saved a little bit because he didn't want to take the job away from his master. He was personally rescue his wife. It's mentioned that Hanuman himself could have rescued Sita right then and there. But that wasn't his mission. His mission was just to find Sita. Otherwise, he would have just burnt the whole place to the ground right then and there, brought Sita back and finished the story. But no, he just was angry though. So he burnt, half the place to the ground. He was so angry, but it's mentioned that anger, that was perfect. Like if someone and they're insulted or hurt in any way, if you don't become angry against whoever's the cause of that hurt to the person you love, is that a good quality or a bad quality? Think about it. If someone's trying to hurt a person you love, if you don't become angry, is that a good quality or a bad quality? That's bad. If someone attacks my wife and I don't do anything about it and I just stand there and watch it being shanti, is she going to think, oh, you're such a good husband, Abhay? She's going to think you're just an idiot. Why did I marry you? You don't love me at all. You have no love. Your heart is just like a rock, like that. So no, if you love someone, you can't tolerate any offenses or like that. You know, like what do they say, right? Or a devotee. Well, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to defeat the person philosophically. If you can't do that, you're supposed to leave that place. You know, and if you can't do that, you're supposed to cut out their tongue. Can you cut out someone's tongue without being angry? You know, and it said, what was the whole purpose, getting back to the Bhagavad Gita, what was the whole purpose of Krishna speaking the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna? What was Krishna trying to achieve? Prabhupada said, you have to turn your speaker on, Ambrish. I can't read lips. I'm not a lip reader. I haven't mastered that.
No, I didn't want to disturb you. I said, make him angry.
Yeah. So the whole purpose of Krishna speaking those 700 verses was angry. You know, so I'm pointing out all these things. What I'm trying to say is that all of these qualities, they're part of us. They're part of the soul. You can't get rid of them. You can't get rid of lust. You can't get rid of greed. You can't get rid of anger. You can't get rid of pride. All you want to do is dovetail everything with Krishna. Become lusty for Krishna, greedy for Krishna, angry for Krishna, proud for Krishna, you know, whatever it is, fearless for Krishna, you know, fearful for Krishna, you know, so what is that? The 4 essential verses from the Bhagavatam, right? One of them is Rataya Tamya Pradita Pradita Chatmani Tadvidayatmano Mayam Mitabato Yasamata. Whatever appears to be of any value, if it is without relation to me, you know, whatever appears to be without relation to me has no value. No, it is my illusory energy, that reflection of which is in darkness. So that's the thing. Maya are only those things that you're not connecting with Krishna. But if the lust is in relationship with Krishna, if the greed is in relationship, as the fear is in relationship, then it's not Maya. It's not Maya. We should not see those things that as Maya, which are in relationship with Krishna. So now finally, we'll just read a little bit from the Gita, if you've got the Gita there. 16th chapter, it's a string of 3 verses. The first point, these are the divine qualities. This is the chapter, divine and demoniac qualities. So these first 3 verses are the divine qualities. The first one mentioned is Abhayam. The first one mentions as Abhayam. Abhayam sattva samshuddhir jnana yoga vastati. So all these qualities there, divine nature. And then in the purport, so Prabhupada talks about this. It's about the 3rd or 4th paragraph. In the Varnashram institution, the sannyasi, or the person in the renounced order of life, is considered to be the head of or the spiritual master of all the social statuses and orders. A Brahmana is considered to be the spiritual master of the 3 other sections of society. But a sannyasi who is on top of the institution is considered to be the spiritual master of the Brahmanas also. For a sannyasi, the first qualification should be fearlessness, because a sannyasi has to be alone without any support. He has simply to depend on the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If one thinks, after I leave my connections, who will protect me? He should not accept the renounced order of life. One must be fully convinced that Krishna, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in his localized aspect as Paramatma, is all, that he is seeing everything and he always knows what one intends to do. One must have firm conviction that Krishna, as Paramatma, will take care of a soul surrendered to him. I shall never be alone. One should think, even if I live in the darkest regions of a forest, I shall be accompanied by Krishna, and he will give me all protection. That conviction is called Abhayam, fearlessness. This state of mind is necessary for a person in the renounced order of life. So, a big part of developing this fearlessness, as Prabhupada is explaining, is that knowledge and conviction that Krishna's everywhere. That's a very important part of Krishna consciousness, that having that all-pervading understanding of the Paramatma is everywhere. And there's many verses about the Paramatma and how is all-pervading. You know, that famous word 518, right? Vidyavanaya sampane brahmani gavi hastani shuni chaiva subhakacha pandita samadashana. So there's many verses about that, how the devotee sees. We should develop that vision that Krishna is everywhere in his form of Paramatma, and he's going to protect us. You know, we've surrendered to him. We're trying to become his devotee. I mean, he protects others also. You know, what to speak of someone that's surrendering? Of course, he's going to protect, and that should give us, you know, a freedom from fear, and that way, this quality will automatically develop if we have that knowledge that Krishna is everywhere and he loves me. I mean, of course, if Krishna's everywhere and he hates me, the things we have to know that God loves us, and he wants the best for us. So once we know he's our well-wisher, you know, Bhaktaram Yagnatapasam Sava Lokameshram Suridam Sava Bhutanam, that he's the friend of all living entities, you know. So once you know that the person that's everywhere is our friend, and he's looking after us, our best interests in mind, then there's nothing to worry about. You know, like Bhishma, and talking about the Bhagavad Gita, on the battle scene, you know, one day, Duryodhana was really peeved off that Bhishma wasn't fighting to his best capacity. And because he said, well, because you love the Pandavas so much, you're not really fighting your best. So Bhishma got really upset, you know, because Kshatriyas are really proud, so he was insulted. So Bhishma said, okay, I'm going to kill all the Pandavas. And then, of course, I will kill Arjuna, or I will either kill Arjuna or I will make Krishna fight. So everyone was like terrified, you know, terrible vow, right? He made a vow to be brahmachari, never get married. He never breaks his vow. You know, he makes a vow, that's it, game over. You know, so he made a vow he's going to kill Arjuna or like that. So, and that night, guess who was sleeping? Arjuna.
Your voice cracked. Sorry, could you repeat that point again? Your voice cracked again. At that point,
Okay. I said,
yes.
That night, guess who was sleeping the most peacefully of anyone? It was Arjuna. And Krishna was like pacing about, and he was like nervous and anxiety. And then Krishna came to Arjuna's bed, side of his bed, and then he was so disturbed, seeing and confused, you know, how Arjuna can sleep when this person, Bhishma, who's a powerful demigod who never breaks his vow, promised that he's going to be killed the next day. And so Krishna woke Arjuna up. Krishna woke up Arjuna and said, how can you sleep, you know, in this situation? And Arjuna said, my Lord, as long as you are worried about me, what do I have to worry about? Do you get that? As long as you are worried about, what do I have to worry about? So therefore I can sleep, you know, because he's under Krishna's shelter. Abhay, Charan, Aravinda, you know, he's under the shelter of Krishna's feet. So he wasn't afraid at all. So that's fearlessness, you know, due to that realization that we're under Krishna's protection. And of course, you know, the 6 symptoms of surrender, right? You know, one of them is complete conviction that Krishna will protect us. Maintainer. You know, so these things, we have to know them, and we have to realize them. We have to act accordingly. So the philosophy is there, you know, Krishna's protecting us, he's maintaining us, but that's not enough. You got to practice that. You got to act according to that philosophy. Then only you'll realize it, right? It's called applied knowledge, you know, vijnanam, jnanam and vijnanam. So the Gyatam is the theoretical knowledge, but you got to apply that in your life. And then and when you've got the realized knowledge, when you've realized it, when you've practiced it and you've applied it, then you become truly, like Prabhupada, truly fearless. You know, he took the risk, you know, took the Jaladuta and as an old man and everything like that. He had the heart attacks he went through. He saw how Krishna, like he had a dream, right? He had a dream afterwards. He had a dream that Krishna came and he was, you know, taking the Jaladuta across the ocean and everything like that. So, you know, he went through the fearful situation. He saw how Krishna protected him. And then that gave him the conviction that, yeah, it's true. You know, Krishna is there. Krishna is there to protect us. You know, so we want to be in these situations and get the experience and the realization through applying the knowledge. And yeah, unfortunately, time's running out as always. Time and tide wait for no man. But yeah, it's amazing. But this knowledge is so powerful. I mean, who knows that who has this philosophy that Krishna is with us in every situation, you know, and we should realize that and know that he's our friend and always protecting us. If anyone has any comments or any questions?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, thank you very much for your wonderful class and your nice realizations, sharing with us. You know, many points came through very, very nicely, and I'm sure everybody not only enjoyed it but gained knowledge as well. And that's the beauty of guest speakers, you know, where you come and you can speak your mind, speak your philosophy at different levels. When we give, oh, this is a beginner's intermediate. We can give only so much information, not so much, but this is great, you know. And this is where I believe this contributes to our preaching efforts, where there can be a jump in the level of knowledge. Devotees, even if they are at the beginner's level, they can jump easily, get information of other things. So very nice. And I quite like, sorry, Krishna's, this is low in battery again. I think, can you help me, please? Right. So I like the way you explained that fearlessness, you know, fear is negative and fear is positive as well. And,
yes.
So every aspect is positive and is negative as well. You know?
Yes.
And as long as we use it in the name of Krishna, for Krishna, then it is positive. And that verse with the gopis and with Hanuman, I remember Srila Goswami explains that point. It's very, very nicely done. So thank you very much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, so nothing is intrinsically good or bad, right? Nothing.
Yeah.
No, I mean, and the knife in the hand of a doctor is good, right? It saves your life. But the knife in the hand of the dacoit, the gunda, takes your life. Is money good or bad? Money, if you take it to the casino or whatever like that, or become greedy for it, it's going to destroy you. Like it said that you know, what does it say? The love of money is the root of all evils, right? There's a saying like that. The love of money is the root of all evils. You know, all the other bad qualities will come. But on the other hand, if you use money to build a temple for Vishnu, what does it say in the 12th canto of Bhagavatam? If you build a temple for Vishnu, that's your ticket back to Godhead. That's it. That's all you have to do. If you build a temple, and that takes money, right? You know, so, you know, how did the Goswamis build their temples? You know, someone, you know, usually a king, like Govindaji temple in Vrindavan, right? How did that get built? You know, it's Sanatana Goswami's deity. He had no money, you know, so, but one king was so inspired by his pravachan, he was preaching so ecstatically, and the king came up and said, oh, Guruji, I just want to do some service. Is there anything I can do? And said, oh, I have a house for my deity. Do you want to build a temple for the deity? He said, sure, I'll build a temple for your deity. And so he built it, and that's his ticket back to Godhead. You know, so money in that sense was wonderful, you know, in that application. But in other application, it's terrible. So every single thing, we look at it like that. if we use it in relation with connection for Krishna's pleasure, it's wonderful. If it's used in connection to just our own self, it's horrible, like that. So these are the kind of things. And just one quick thing I thought of, because it talks about abhayam as a quality for sannyasis. So we might think, well, I'm not a sannyasi. This is not very relevant for me. I don't really need to develop fearlessness because I'm not a sannyasi. But it is not just for the ones that carry the long stick and wear the saffron cloth. One time, an Indian man was asked a question and was like criticizing Prabhupada, actually, that why have you given young people, these young men, you've given that sannyas should only be given when you're old. So Prabhupada, to that criticism for what he did, he asked a question. He said, what is the definition of old? What does it mean to be old? And the man said, well, old really means, before you die. So then Prabhupada said, so when you're going to die? And that man was like, he was stumped. So Prabhupada said, potentially, any one of us, every one of us, potentially is old. I mean, say now, it's like now I'm 50, right? So you might say, well, halfway through my life, I'm not very old. I'm a little bit old, but not very old. But like if I die tomorrow, if I like just a few months ago, I had my appendix burst and that nearly did kill me, so, and it could happen tomorrow. It could blow up again, or I could get a heart attack tomorrow. So in that case, if I was going to die of a heart attack or appendix tomorrow, then I'm very, very old now. I'm 50. I'm very, 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 very old, and I should take sannyas. So that was Prabhupada's point, that it's not wrong to give a young person sannyas, because potentially any one of those so-called young people could die, and many did. Like one of his young disciples, Jayananda, actually died before Prabhupada. The one that built the Rath carts, right? His pictures on all the Rath carts. He died of, I think, some kind of cancer, before Prabhupada. He was only in his 30s and he died, so not wrong awarding the sannyas to help to give the potential. Of course, it's not an automatic rubber stamp that you're going to become serious, but the idea is that you become more dedicated. Like I said, tivrena, more serious, more intense. So each one of us should think like that we could die at any time. We should. One time Prabhupada said that all my disciples are sannyasis. What does that mean? Because there was women in the room, and he has women disciples and young children and boys, and most of the devotees were like 20 or 30, between 20 and 30 years old. He said, all my disciples are sannyasis. What does that mean? Sannyas in the Bhagavad Gita, both in the beginning of the 6th chapter and then in the 18th chapter, he says, not one who lights no fire and all that kind of stuff, but it's one who does no fruitive activity. Nothing is done for our personal sense gratification, everything for Krishna. And that was Prabhupada's life, and that was all the devotees' life. My motto my whole life, and he said my motto my whole life. He didn't say after I took sannyas. He said my motto my whole life, everything for Krishna, nothing for me. That's sannyas. And that doesn't wait till you're, an old man with all your hair's falling out and your teeth are falling out and you can't see anymore and you're just about to die. Now that's for everyone, man, woman, child, whatever, like that, is to not for sense gratification based on material desires, but to act for Krishna's pleasure. And that's the whole meaning of Krishna consciousness and devotionals, to act for Krishna's pleasure. So that we can do at any stage of our life. So if we do that, then we're a sannyasi. And then, of course, that quality of fearlessness is very relevant.
Wonderful, Prabhuji. Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I think the purpose of the fearlessness with the guest lecturers is being fulfilled. Okay. Now we are a little over on the time, but we can take one question if anyone has a burning question and he jumps in, is first come. One question, it can be answered, please.
Don't be afraid to ask questions. That's one thing you shouldn't be afraid of. Never. Sometimes we're afraid of asking a question, especially in public, right? Oh, what will all the other people think? But that's one thing you should never be afraid of. Never be afraid of asking questions in the Bhagavatam class. All the Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, this is your chance. If you have any question, this is the one question. If we have only so much time, unfortunately. So I don't want to say anything or give a comment. Please feel free.
Hare Krishna, Abhay, thank you for your wonderful class. I really, really, really enjoyed it. It was absolutely fantastic. I don't actually have a question, but I just wanted to mention the point you made about fearlessness coming with experience and applying the philosophy, applying devotional service. I think that's a point that I will how do you say? It's a point that did stick with me, particularly because obviously, and you also how you mentioned, and my father also said the same thing, that fearlessness is not being fearful is not actually a bad thing, and it's how you align that fear with devotional service and not wanting to lose your connection with Lord Krishna and the Sampradaya, etc. So yeah, I don't have a question, but I just really wanted to say that I really enjoyed your class, bro. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad. Yes, sometimes to go from that theoretical knowledge, which we all have, right? Every devotee knows that Krishna is everywhere, is the Paramatma and everything. So everyone has there, and so. But why is it we're still fearful? Because, like I say, maybe there's just a bit of a gap between the theory and the realization. It's not, as we say, right? The penny hasn't dropped yet. The penny, it's there in the head, but it hasn't gone to the heart. So how do you go from the head to the heart? The penny hasn't dropped. So just the suggestion, and I see that from the great personalities, is that sometimes they take a risk, and that's the application of that. Okay, well, I'll take a risk, but Krishna will protect me. Krishna will catch me at the other end. Krishna will protect me. So if you're in your comfort zone all the time and you're just doing your regular prescribed duties, and you're not going out, preaching and that stuff like that, then you won't get that. But if you step out, not all the time, because you don't want to be in an emergency kind of crazy mode all the time, but sometimes just take a risk and just see what happens. And that what will inevitably happen is that Krishna will catch you. Krishna will protect you. And that's what gives you the realization. I did what it said in the book, and it worked. Krishna actually looked after me. I didn't lose. Yoga samya vahamyaham, right? That he is going to preserve what I have and carry what I lack. But he actually put that into practice and then see that, he did it. He actually carried what I lack. He actually preserved, like that. And it's through preaching, especially, because that's where the most risks are, because you're dealing with demoniac personalities and the mode of ignorance and the mode of passion, that are envious of God and so forth, like that. And sometimes they're very angry, like that. So it's in that kind of situation, especially, you're going out on Harinam, you're distributing prasad, distributing books, talking to people, whatever, that these risks are there. And then when Krishna protects us in these situations, and that situation, I was attacked by a dog, and I saw how Krishna protected me in that situation. And that increased my faith, because Krishna, a devotee, came and got me 5 minutes after I got bitten. And he said that, I said, why did you come? Because he wasn't supposed to come for an hour. And I said, why did you come? And he said, because a voice inside of me said, Abhay's in trouble, go and find Abhay. And I realized it's actually in the heart. I knew that theoretically it's in the heart, but now through that I was convinced it was Krishna in my heart, communicated to Krishna as a same Krishna, and the heart of the other devotee that Abhay's in trouble, go and find Abhay. Because there's no logical reason why he should have come. I mean, logically, it's impossible. He should not have come, but he came. So, know through that situation that Krishna is there. So somehow or other, if we can get those experiences, that will be our faith. Like Prabhupada's faith is not just, and Krishna is not just theoretical, it's like a mountain. Isn't it? Prabhupada faced the biggest atheists, the biggest scientists, and everyone was, ran away, like that big dog. They all ran away, out of fear. So Prabhupada was able to, because his faith in Krishna's like unlimited, because he'd taken so many risks and went through so many dangers, and and he knew Krishna was there. He knew Krishna was by his side. He had no doubts. And the problem is we have doubts, isn't it? That's one of the last things, right? What's that verse 1874 or 5? That Nashta Moha Smriti Labda. That verse saying, Krishna saying, now is your illusion dispelled. And no, Arjuna's saying, to Krishna, now my illusion is dispelled by your mercy. And he says, all my doubts are gone, because that's the thing, right? We still have doubts. Is Krishna really there? I know, theoretically I know he's there, but is he really there? Through the advancement of Krishna consciousness, then what happens is all these doubts slowly go away. The more and more we hear, and the more and more we practice what we hear, apply what we hear, then these doubts in our heart about, is Krishna really going to protect me? Am I really, safe and everything? Gradually, all these things get washed away. But anyway, sorry to waffle on, but thank you for your appreciation. That makes my life worthwhile. If you find some value in what I've said, then I'm very happy. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Prabhuji.
Welcome.
Thank you very much for your class and realizations and the time. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. So with this, now we conclude our second class. Now we'll be starting our beginners program. So those of you who are joining us on YouTube, kindly stay put there. In about 20 seconds, we're going to disconnect now on YouTube, and we'll join back again in about 20 seconds. So don't go away. Please be there. Hare Krishna. Krishnadas, can you take over? I can sing now. The Jai Radha Madhava. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Okay, there we go.